So this is a Morgagnian cataract, and here we expect a very liquid cortex. Again, a highly cohesive viscoelastic. Helon 5 is used here, and the capsule is painted with vision blue under the viscoelastic. See, we don't need very much. We can spread it around on the surface, and the staining is more effective the longer it stays on the capsule. That's why I prefer this over instilling it into the anterior chamber before viscoelastic is placed in the anterior chamber and then irrigated out, because I find this stain of the capsule is more effective, and also we're not staining any other tissue than the capsule. We can aspirate a little bit of the vision blue or viscoelastic that's stained with vision blue and then add more viscoelastic now, which clears the area centrally and gets as much flattening of the capsule as possible for the CCC. That's the secret to avoiding radialization, is flattening the capsule as much as possible. So if we get a lot of gush of liquid cortex at this point, we could stop and aspirate that liquid cortex through the paracentesis, but we did not get that here. Again, for safety reasons, a small CCC, which can be enlarged if it's too small, after lens placement or before. I like to do it afterward because then we have the 6mm lens to gauge more accurately the exact size of the CCC that we want. One can also spiral around and enlarge, like you see here, where we started small but ended up a little bigger by spiraling out. So you can see that this cortex is all aspirated with the hydrodissection cannula. So it was all liquid cortex. So with liquid cortex, we're going to have to replace that cortex with a dispersive viscoelastic that will stay there as much as possible, much more than a cohesive, during phacoemulsification to protect the posterior capsule and as well as the cornea. So these white lens cases can have a firm cortex or a liquid cortex. We don't know really for sure until we get the capsule opened just what the nature of the cortex will be. If we use enough viscoelastic, cohesive viscoelastic, these cases should go similarly to the cases that have epinucleus and cortex protecting the capsule. It's a different feel though, because the nucleus is not as stable as it is against epinucleus and cortex. It wants to just move around in the viscoelastic. One point I could make is to make sure you're always under capsule with your second instrument. And the way I do that is to just push down against the lens, make sure I'm going against the lens, and that means that I'm not going on top of the capsule. Again, here we're leaving the segments in place for easy rotation until the fracturing is complete. Trying to get good separation of each segment. That can be a challenge in very dense nuclei because of the density of the nucleus right out to cortex. See the awkwardness of that lens, not wanting to stay in a central position against a dispersive viscoelastic as much as it would against cortex and epinucleus. And against note smaller segments with dense nucleus. Because you won't have as much nucleus escaping the tip when you're emulsifying small segments as if you go after a quadrant of the nucleus. So my rule again is the denser the nucleus, the smaller the segments. You can see this is a 2009 case. So femtosecond laser may make these techniques obsolete, but I think we need to all know them because we're not going to always have a femtosecond laser available. Adding more dispersive viscoelastic at this point. By adding more dispersive viscoelastic, one can protect the cornea. This is particularly important when you get to the last stages of the nucleus removal, because then we're up closer to the cornea. A balance of the amount of vacuum to use here to be effective in nucleus removal and not have excessive surge is the balancing act. newer instrumentation with better fluidics will make this less of a risk all the time.